Welcome to the Dr. Crochet Show. Hello, Dr. Crochet here. Ladies and gents, I want to take today to talk to you about crochet hooks. There's been some discussion pop up lately online in crochet groups about how do you determine the size of a crochet hook, because people have bought two different types of boy hooks, boy brand, B-O-Y-E, boy brand. One said it was an N 9mm. The other one said it was an N 10mm. And I want to talk to you about a little bit about sizing hooks and how to properly size a hook. There seems to be a bit of confusion in the crochet world as to how you size a crochet hook. How do you properly determine what the size is? I recently was involved in kind of a heated argument online about what was determining a crochet hook size, and this person, got to give them a little kudos. They stuck to their guns, even though they were wrong, and they were proven wrong with multiple site submissions on how to measure a hook. But yet they still maintained that the hook part of the crochet hook determines size. It does not. The point, that's what it's called, point. It's not called a hook. It's called a point. Has absolutely nothing to do with the size of your crochet hook. Neither does the throat. That's the part just behind the point that slants down to the point. It's either inline, or tapered. Those are the two types of throats that are available today, inline and taper. And everyone has their preference. My preference is neither. I could care less. I can work with inline or taper. Neither one affects how I crochet or affects my gauge. So that really is not a determining factor for me. Some people like how they grab the yarn, and that is exactly what the throat type is for. How the hook itself grabs the yarn. Has nothing to do with how your gauge comes out or how you crochet. It just determines on how it grabs the yarn when it's coming through the loop. Then you get to the shaft or barrel, whatever you want to call it. It's called a shaft. That is where the actual size is determined for a crochet hook. Your shaft runs from where the throat begins on a hook, and I'll show you on this one. This is a Yarnology bamboo handled hook from Hobby Lobby, and as you can see, if I can get it to focus, that is a 5mm. Oh, I had it upside down. Let me turn it this way. Maybe it'll be better this way. Yeah, there we go. 5mm. Also considered an H or an 8 if you're following U.S. designations, which in my opinion is probably the dumbest way. Or let me rephrase that. Not the dumbest way, but the most illogical way to size your hooks is by the alphabetical numbers and the U.S. designations. U.S. designations are so confusing because there is no standard in crochet hook manufacturing. There is no standard. The Craft Yarn Council, or the CYC, has pushed for years for a more definitive regulation on hook creation. However, manufacturer can assign an alphabetical number or letter to their sizes at random. It does not have to follow a specified millimeters. Whereas in millimeters, you're always going to have that millimeter. If you need a 5mm hook to do that pattern, you're going to need a 5mm hook to do that pattern. Now, if you buy it from, say, Boy, it could be an H. If you buy it from Bates, it could be a G. If you buy it from some off-the-wall company from overseas who isn't quite sure how to properly size the U.S. designations on a hook, it could be an I or a J. It just depends on the company. However, millimeters will never change because it's millimeters is this actual size of the shaft. And I'm going to show you some pictures that determine that. And you'll see in those pictures that I'm going to put right here, there's going to be a couple of them on. I showed different kinds of hooks, or different brand of hooks, and every one of them I measure the shaft right here from the beginning of the thumb rest to the beginning of the throat. Oh, you can see it better this way. Beginning of the throat. See where it starts to taper right here, to the front of the thumb rest, which is right there. This part is the only part that determines the size of a hook. It's not your handle. It's not the point. It's not the throat. It's the shaft. Only the shaft. Part of our problem in the crochet community today is that people do not know the proper anatomy of a hook. They think that the hook is the hook on the end. It's not. It's not even called a hook. It's called a point. The hook is the overall tool. Let me show you. From here to here, that is a crochet hook. This is not a hook. This part right here on the end is called a point. And the part right behind it is called the throat. Then you have the shaft, the thumb rest, and the handle. And every one of those items has a job. The point is used to push through stitches. It needs to be sharp enough to go through a stitch, but blunt enough that it doesn't poke your finger and it doesn't split the yarn. There are hooks out there that are so sharp that if you are pushing through a stitch hard enough, you will make yourself bleed. And nobody wants blood on their yarn. That's just a waste. Then you have the throat. The throat is used for one purpose and one purpose only. How it pulls the yarn through the loop. That's all a throat determines. It doesn't determine how your gauge. It doesn't determine how well you crochet or how well you don't crochet. It doesn't determine the size of your gauge for your pattern. This will not affect the gauge in your pattern whatsoever, even though people believe that it does. It will not. The only thing that affects the gauge in your pattern is how tightly you hold your yarn, your tension, and this part right here, the shaft. Shaft determines loop size, which determines stitch size. Stitch size determines gauge. Then you have your thumb rest, and that should rest neatly between your thumb and your forefinger. And that doesn't matter if you hold it knife or if you're holding it pencil, you're always going to have it between your thumb and forefinger. I personally hold it knife grip. I've tried to do a pencil. My hand just doesn't work that way. Then you have the handle part. Yes, the handle part has a function. It's not just there for looks. It's not there just so you have something to hold on to. It helps determine balance and leverage when crocheting. Now, you ask me, Dr. Crochet, what does that mean? What does leverage mean in crochet? Have you ever tried to push through a hard stitch? Have you ever paid attention to where you're grabbing that hook to put pressure through on a tough stitch? You're not putting it up here and going, I can't get it through there. It's just not working. No, you're grabbing it back here and you're pushing, or you're doing this, trying to wiggle it through that tight stitch in order to pick up the yarn on the other side to pull through and make a loop. This is a leverage bar. It's also called a handle. Now we've got the anatomy of a hook out of the way. How do we determine hook size? Well, if you look at the pictures that I put in above, right up here, you will see, or actually I think they're going to be right over here. You'll see that I just used a ruler. It was on a knitting gauge. I don't have a crochet hook gauge. I've been trying to get one from Clover for over a year, but they've been out of stock for over a year. I will show you a picture of a clover crochet hook gauge. You can use a micrometer. I tried to find mine. I don't know where it's at. A micrometer is also called a caliper. You can also use a good slide rule if you can find one. But anything that measures millimeters is going to be perfect to measure your hook. In that, when you measure your hook, you have to measure shaft. You're not measuring circumference, by the way. So you're not going to wrap a tape measure around the hook. You're not going to wrap it all the way around here. That won't give you proper size. You're only going to measure from one side to the other. You're only measuring the diameter of the shaft. Again, point does not make a difference. That point on the end does not determine hook size. It has absolutely nothing to do with hook size. You could have on one hook a very bulbous point, but a very narrow shaft, because shaft is what determines your loop. Now, granted, nobody's going to make a crochet hook that way. Why? Because when you go to pass back through the loop, a bulbous head's going to stretch the stitch out. So it just is an illogical way to make a hook. And that's part of the issue I have with a lot of people within the yarn community today, the crochet community. They don't think logically about how a crochet hook is made. And they want to say, oh, it's always the hook, it's the hook, it's the hook, it's a hook. It is not the point. That's what it's called, a point. It's not called a hook. Let's get that out of the way. It's a point, 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 not hook. That's just... Let me just run off on a tangent here for a second with what you call things. Correct terminology. People, stop calling it hobby in Denmark. The store is not hobby. Yes, literally translated Hobbii in Danish is American word hobby. However, have you ever seen a business that changed a word to meet the way they make their name? Surely that would never happen. Well, it does. Hobbii is Hobbii. Watch their videos. They call themselves Hobbii, not hobby. It's not the Hobby Corporation. It's not the Hobby Yarn Company. It's Hobbii. Hobbii out of Denmark. The same issue applies to yarn companies. It's not Bernay, it's Burnett. It's not patents, it's patents. You can't screw up Red Heart. That's just how it is. And Lion Brand. Those you just can't screw up because they're just basic words. But within those, there are things that you can screw up. Like, it's not Hygge, it's Huggy. I know it's spelled Hy, but it is Huggy, not Hygge. Also, you have Elise brand yarn. It's not Elise or Elise, it's Elise. You also have different types of yarn out there, and you need to know what those are, like the Huggy or Bucle. It is Bucle. It is not Busley. It's not Buckley. It's Bucle. That is a proper pronunciation. Anyway, now that I've run off on that little rabbit hole and that trail, let's get back to what I was talking about with crochet hooks. I will show you in the pictures that I'm going to overlay in this video how to properly measure a hook. You can do it with a simple ruler. You don't have to have a micrometer. Micrometer just makes it really easy. Especially if you get a good digital one. And you can get good digital ones pretty cheap. Check Harbor Freight Tools. Check Northern Tool and Supply. Check in the tool sections of Lowe's. You're not going to find it probably at Home Depot. Home Depot is really sparse on their tools. Lowe's carries more tools. Ace Hardware will have one because they're more specialized. But you can often find them cheap if you find them on sale in those mainstream big box stores. You might even find one at Walmart. Don't quote me on that. I've never looked. But Walmart might have one. And you can find them online all over the place, especially if you're a big Amazon shopper like I am. Yes, I know I patronize the evil empire. They're no worse than Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or Sears or Hobby Lobby or Joann's or Michael's. They're all big box stores and they all treat their employees like crap. Amazon's no different. It just gets more press because people don't like the fact that it is a world marketplace that makes good money. And that they can undercut the competition because they open it up as a world marketplace. It's not a single store like people seem to think. You're not actually shopping Amazon. You're shopping a bunch of little businesses under one big umbrella. Kind of like a flea market. Anyway, you can find a micrometer pretty cheap. That way, I think the cheapest I saw was a manual, not a digital, a manual, and it was $1.99 at Harbor Freight Tools. You know, I think I got mine for like $5. I'm probably gonna have to buy another one because I can't seem to find mine. It's around here somewhere. And of course, the minute I buy another one, I'll find my old one. Anyway, when you measure a hook, you just put the hook in between the calipers of them on the micrometer and look at the millimeters. That's it. That's all there is to it. It's super simple. You can do it with a ruler. You just hold the ruler up, and I'll show you right here in this picture. You just hold the ruler up to the hook, and then you can see it again in this picture and this picture, where I'm holding the ruler up to the shaft of the crochet hook. Remember, the overall tool is the crochet hook, not the point on the top. And you measure the shaft, and you're measuring the diameter. That's just straight across. Remember from geography, radiuses and diameters and circumference. Circumference is all the way around. Radius is half that size. Diameter is all the way across a circle. Well, crochet hook is nothing more than a circle. It's a barrel. You know, a 3D circle. That's all it is. So you measure the shaft across, and you'll see the millimeters. And if you look in these pictures, these are all 6 millimeter hooks. And I have some pretty popular brands in there. I measure a Clover. I measure a BCM Run. I measure a Bates and a Boy, both. I just covered up the name with my fingers. But they are all 6 millimeter hooks. And there's a Yarnology one in there. Still 6 millimeter hook. All the same size if you go by millimeters. However, if you were to go by letter, they could be any number of letters in there, depending on the company that manufactures them. Because there is no industry standard when it comes to American designations. The Yarn Council has been pushing for them. Still no regulations. Still nothing regulated. Still nothing determinable other than the actual size, which is what millimeters is. No, they are not trying to push the metric system on you. It's just how it's measured. You know, there are some things that are better measured metrically rather than imperially. Actually, everything is better if you measure in metrics than imperial system. The imperial system is way out of date. It's way complicated. Nobody in the world other than America measures things in fractions. They measure them in decimals, and that comes from metrics. Enough said on that. I hope this video has been informative for you. I hope you can follow along with the pictures that I've posted within the video. I hope they make sense to you. Let me know. Again, please know the anatomy of your tool, know how to measure your tool properly, so that there's not confusion and you're not one of those people posting online going, I don't understand. The pattern called for 6. I'm using a 6, but it says it's a J from boy, but it says it's an M from Bates. I don't understand. Don't be one of those people. Understand that your hooks are measured by millimeters and not those designations. Dr. Crochet out. Stay happy. Stay hooking. And remember, like, comment, and subscribe. Just one last quick addition to this video. I will post a how to properly measure your hook article at the end of this video, and I will put the link in the description box below. Please take time to read the articles if you're not sure how to measure your hooks properly. There's a lot of good information in it. It's by All Free Crochet, but it's backed by a very good article writer and author. All right. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. Stay happy, stay hooked.